Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone. We have the latest on the plane crash out of D.C. We have video, we have audio, we have the air traffic controllers, we have ongoing concerns, tension, controversy surrounding Donald Trump's plan to impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada. And that could happen as early as Saturday, and it looks like it's going to. Regardless of what happens, what measures are taken to try to stop that, don't think that's going to happen. It looks like full steam ahead. We have the confirmations, or the confirmation hearings today for Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. And we have other top news stories of the day coming up on the other side of this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We're back. So tonight, we know that all 67 people aboard an Army helicopter and that American Airlines flight from Kansas were killed in that collision overnight over the Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport. Now, the cause is still unclear. The National Transportation Safety Board has launched an investigation. A preliminary report by the FAA indicates that air traffic control staffing was, in their words, not normal at the time of the crash. And then today, President Trump came out and implied that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs maybe, could be, are the cause, according to him, even though the investigation into the crash has really only just begun. So among the passengers on the flight were a couple of elite figure skaters returning from a training camp in Wichita, Kansas. We have video that we posted on our Twitter news feed overnight, the Maverick News account on X. I'm going to show you the video of the crash. We have two different angles that were captured, one on a dash cam, another from security camera footage. And we had it up within moments overnight. Here's the first angle from a dash cam on a car heading into the airport.
Color is it? It's blue. It's blue.
Oh,
What happened?
oh my God!
Oh my God. Color is it?
You could see it there.
It's blue. It's blue.
Oh,
What happened?
oh my God!
Oh my God.
We'll give it one more pass.
It's blue. It's blue.
Oh,
What happened?
oh my God!
And as I say, no survivors. Here's the first video that we became aware of and were able to share with viewers last night on our X platform. And there it is, just above the horizon. Zoomed in a little more pixelated, but it gives you a better idea of what happened. So we continue to follow the story. And of course, it's receiving extensive coverage. And Donald Trump today indicated that from his perspective, he thinks that this happened because of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. I'm just going to take a very short break here. I need to queue up a couple of pieces of a video for you that aren't properly situated, so just give me one moment. We'll come back and continue with this in just a second. Don't go away.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so Trump blaming DEI for the plane crash. I've got the clip queued up here, and that is, of course, resulting in reaction that is highly polarized tonight, to say the least.
Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't.
So, okay. He's kind of going straight for the DEI blame game. That's politics. The truth is, we don't know much at this point. So he stopped short of, he didn't blame the air traffic controller directly. In fact, he kind of said that, I watched the entire newser, and he was a little all over the map with it, but he just very focused on DEI, blaming DEI for this. And I don't know how you draw a conclusion, honestly, on something like this before you have all of the information. And you don't have all of the information because they have only just moments ago recovered the black box recorders from the aircraft. So the investigation is in its very early stages, and it will be, you'll get the information rolling out over a number of days, weeks, and months as the investigation progresses. We do have audio from the air traffic controllers. I can bring that up and share that with you tonight.
Pass 25, this is CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass 1, this is CRJ. 2-17. I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach in the 33. 6347. First ship to 342, that's a Wilson Bridge, tank to turn runway 33, runway 33, clear to land.
Did you see that?
472. American 3130, go around, turn left end 250, climb maintain 3000. Black check 3, can you return to base? What? Black check 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. I need you to land immediately. Can you go to Dulles for a few minutes? Okay, Muscle 13, I need to have you exit the airspace. Can you go to Andrews? Blackjack 3, do you have any kind of like searchlight or maybe anything on board that would help shed some light at the east end of the field? Yeah, when you get to South Cab, you're going to see a lot of trucks on the east end of the field. You'll be met with Blackjack 1. If there's any way you can assist, let me know. If you're unable due to fuel or any kind of equipment limitations, let me know. But if you any way you can assist, let us know. All right. Delta 32, if you want to shut them down or if you want to go back to gate, let me know. I don't know if we're going to resume operations in the near future. It might be about 30 or 40 minutes. Delta 32, sorry. I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach into 3-3. We're going to be shutting down operations for the indefinite future. If you want to go back to the gate, highly suggest you guys coordinate with the company. Let me know what you want to do.
All right, we'll let the company, talking to them right now. Yeah, we witnessed the whole thing. If you need any information from us.
Okay, not quite yet, but just remain on frequency, and I'll give you a phone number here in a second.
All right, thanks.
Fire Command, the accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33. It was probably out in the middle of the river. I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half mile off the approach end of 33.
So last night, we were notified very quickly, people letting me know about it, and then we got information up on the X account, and it was very early as the incident unfolded, and there were reports that 4 people had been pulled from the water, but it turned out to be incorrect information too early. But there were a number of social media posts and media reports that indicated 4 people had been rescued, and that was not the case. So now tonight we know there are in fact no survivors. And so this has focused a lot of attention on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think, we're going to be seeing this as a theme within the Trump administration, reacting to all kinds of incidents. That seems to be the go-to at the moment, because when the wildfires in LA, California, devastated the neighborhoods there, that is where they went. They pointed the finger at, diversity, equity, inclusion, left-wing politics, politicians who were progressive and woke, and DEI hiring practices that created an environment, or a workplace environment, a professional environment that wasn't meeting previous standards. That seems to be the focus. Essentially saying that they're hiring too many people to try to meet quotas for certain kinds of placements. Minorities, visible minorities, people with disabilities, and so on. That has prompted a strong backlash from, I guess, the anti-Trump side of the political aisle, and strong defense, rabid defense, honestly, from people on the pro-Trump side of the aisle. Here's J.D. Vance talking about restoring competence to air traffic control. Bring him up.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the President said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the President said that I think bears reemphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
That's what they're saying. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I'm seeing a lot of posts from people, so even people who are air traffic controllers and people within government saying that that's not a true claim. But I'm thinking that over time, these investigations may reveal more and give us more insight into whether these are really truthful statements or if they're just politicized. Maybe a little bit of both. I just get uneasy when I see people jumping to conclusions when in an incident like this without even letting investigators deliver any kind of real solid reports. You don't have all the information here yet. So what was the actual cause of this? I think really if you are really truly focused on public safety, you need to wait for all the facts to come in before drawing conclusions. But hey, these guys are politicians. This is a political environment, a political game, and it's a blood sport. And the politics plays out on Fox News.
What's happening
with Pete Hegseth and what's his name here?
What's happening with DEI? How's that going at the Defense Department?
Well, DEI is not going well at the Defense Department because it's dead. We will, as the president said in his inaugural, we will be merit-based and colorblind, and that is the case at the Defense Department. DEI is going to be ripped out root and branch because we want everyone treated equally with high standards and held accountable with warfighting, lethality, and readiness front and center. We don't have time for emphasizing differences. Jesse, one of the dumbest phrases in military history is our diversity is our strength. Our diversity is not our strength. Our unity and our shared purpose is our strength. And the Pentagon is excited to get back to that core mission. It's happening rapidly. The services are responding, and those that don't want to respond can work somewhere else. So diversity, equity, inclusion will not be a part of the Defense Department, not a minute long.
What's happening with DEI? How's that going at the Defense Department?
So I've said that, even in Canada as a country, Trudeau, a lot of politicians these days, they say diversity is our strength. He repeats it over and over and over again. And, my position on it has been diversity is not our strength. Diversity is our challenge, whether you like it or not. The truth is we have a diverse country in Canada and in the United States, and that's the reality, whether you like it or not. And a lot of people don't like it, which is why it's a challenge. It really is not ultimately, at this point in our history, a strength. I would say it's a challenge. We're still struggling with this experiment in how to get along. We sort of had things dialed in, I think, when we were emphasizing tolerance, but somehow, and even Justin Trudeau in Canada has said this. He said this in a speech in my hometown of London, Ontario. What was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when that Muslim family was run over by that driver on a sidewalk, and he went to the town after that incident, and in his speech he said we need to move beyond diversity, or beyond tolerance, he said. We have to go beyond tolerance. And I said, no, that's a mistake. You can't go beyond tolerance, because if you go beyond tolerance, now you're enforcing or coercing a particular point of view. You're forcing people to be tolerant, which is coercive, which means that it's not about tolerance. Now you're forcing something on someone, forcing them to adopt a particular point of view. Tolerance is about accepting that somebody is different than you and just leaving them alone. Let them be. You don't need to. What Trudeau and some of these people, I would say on the extreme left, advocate for is forcing people to not only tolerate it, but accept it and adopt it and even like it, even if you don't. And there's no way that can ever work, because too many people have too many diverse opinions on too many subjects. And when you talk about tolerance, it has to extend to also, and this is me editorializing, but in my view, it needs to extend to a diversity of opinions, not just diversity of religion, diverse skin colors, diversity in race. It has to extend to diversity of opinions. That's why you can't coerce it. You can't force people. You can protect people with laws against things like incitement of violence, or someone calling for someone to be killed or something like that. There are laws against that anyway. But to really make diversity work, you need to be tolerant of people that you strongly disagree with, and kind of leave it at that. But a lot of people applauding Trump tonight as well. It's like there's a sort of I would say, a social media war going on. This is Jeffrey Mead. He's an online influencer talking about this issue. And he's a pro-Trumper all the way.
I am obviously acutely aware.
He says he's trying to draw attention to the contrast between the two administrations, the Biden administration and Biden's press secretary, and now Trump's new press secretary, showing how DEI is dead under Trump.
I am obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all three of those to hold this position.
How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees.
Another perfect example of why DEI needs to go. Pay attention. When Biden's press secretary got up there, what was the first thing she was talking about? Race, gender, sexual orientation, yada, yada, yada. Trump's press secretary gets up there and actually starts talking about the Trump administration. One is focused on things that aren't their job, race, gender, sexual orientation, and the other is actually focused on things that are their job. Biden's press secretary led with her race, gender, sexual orientation, all that. Trump's led with focusing on what her job is, talking about the Trump administration, representing that administration, and answering questions. It's just a night and day difference. I am glad that we no longer have an administration prioritizing DEI. It's time for that to go. Get it out of here.
The thing is, though, that the country is very divided. And if you just, well, here, I'll just do a random scroll down X. And people, rabid on the issue, right? Let's just, didn't even cue this up prior to this. So this is very random. I'm not, focusing on anything in particular. It's just what's coming up in my feed. So I guess it's skewed to my particular viewing habits, I guess, and what I look for. So this is aimed at me. and anyone in my particular demographic, I guess, but specifically to me, by the algorithm on X. Nevertheless, here's libs of TikTok saying this is what Trump was referring to when he called out the FAA for their DEI hiring practices to hire people with severe psychiatric and intellectual disabilities. It's real. You can't make this up. Current job listing for air traffic controller on the FAA's website is open to people with disabilities, including psychiatric and intellectual delays. So they're really focusing on that. Honestly, that does seem very impractical, dangerous maybe even, because I know that the job of being an air traffic controller is extremely stressful. Those guys have a very, very tough job. And, here's Trump responding to a question from a reporter today, though, who asks a very valid question, though. How do you know, how did you come to the conclusion that DEI had something to do with this crash? And I'm not sure I'm satisfied with Trump's response on this. You can assess and share your opinion in the chat.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have. But they didn't build the systems properly. They spent a lot of money renovating a system, spending much more money than they would have spent if they bought a new system for air traffic controllers, meaning the computerized systems. There are certain companies that do a very good job. They didn't use those companies. They used companies that should not have been doing it. No, I think it's very important to understand that for some jobs, and not only this, but air traffic controllers, they have to be at the highest level of genius. Okay.
The highest level of genius. He has I'll say, I don't think Trump is the greatest orator when it comes to sophisticated language, but maybe the reason he resonates so much with people is because he just speaks in a very common tongue. If you understand what I mean, he doesn't come across to me as being very intellectual, but he's an effective communicator, I think, because his language style is very common, if that makes sense. That's the way he said that, a certain level of genius. I would never phrase it that way. But we understand what he's getting at. He wants the best of the best of the best of the best for every job, or the best that you can get, I guess. Here, let's continue to scroll down X and look at the ongoing social media war on this subject. So there he is, signing the memorandum order.
Second for your signature, we have a presidential memorandum titled Immediate Assessment of Aviation Safety. In light of the damage done to aviation safety by the Biden administration's DEI and woke policies, what this presidential memorandum orders is for your Secretary of Transportation and FAA administrator, in this case acting FAA administrator, to basically ensure that we are actively undoing all of that damage, that we are assessing how much damage was done, and that we're ensuring that people hired within the FAA, in keeping with your memorandum of January 21st, are only the most outstanding, capable people for the jobs that they're being hired into.
In other words, competence.
Yes, sir. Elevating competence over everything else instead of the DEI policies that were pursued by the Biden administration.
I think everyone understands that. And Obama.
Yes.
Both of them. Okay, but Biden much worse. Not even a contest. What they've done is just crazy in so many other ways. Okay?
And then this post right below it, if you're on the right blaming the crash on DEI hires before bodies are cold, you're trash. If you're on the left immediately blaming Trump, you're trash. These Americans and soldiers just died. This is not a political opportunity. It's a tragedy. Fault will out. And here's the BBC tonight.
It's the loss of life. That's paramount. That's not.
Here's their take on it. And it looks like they're attacking Trump because of his position on it.
It's the loss of life. That's paramount. That's number one in everybody's mind.
And of course, the president was going there in his address from the White House. But can you help me with the second part, when he also appeared to go there on DEI policy? What was he saying is the problem in this accident with hiring people under DEI rules?
Well, I think, the president's been asked questions about this over and over, and so there's a necessity to communicate in order to get an investigation going and to communicate why ahead of time, and I think that's a responsible thing to do, because you do need to look at this point. Linda was not honest with you when she was on just now. You asked her, was there a policy about hiring and advancing people in preferential ways who had, sort of the DEI characteristics, and she said they did not. I have the policy in front of me. This is the Biden administration policy that they put out from the FAA for hiring, and it says that they wanted to prioritize hiring people who had either a loss of hearing, vision, missing extremities, paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, or severe psychological disability. So the Biden administration had their priorities in the wrong place, and I think that any fair-minded person is going to look at what they did and say, that may have caused problems, because you got to think about it this way. I heard the questions you asked her, and if you're thinking about why there may have been a lack of staff, well, if you were using resources to go out and try to go on this hunt for, quote, diverse hires, you're missing out on a much wider, larger group of people, and you should have spent those resources trying to find a number of great people.
Yeah, because I've read that policy too, Robbie, and I think what might be useful is if you just gave us the evidence now that the 2-year journey to become an ATC, an air traffic controller, was in any way sped up in any known example by DEI hiring. So I've read the policy, you've read the policy. Can you give me a name or a case where the 2-year trip to become a trained air traffic controller was subverted, speeded up, or bypassed by DEI?
Well, here's what we've seen with DEI and what's going to be investigated. So we've seen standards lowered across the board in the federal government, in universities, in medical schools, all over the place because of DEI policies in an attempt to try to get these things in.
It's a no.
No, it's not a no. It's in fact what I.
But it's not a yes.
It's what I referred to before. It's about shifting resources the wrong way. If we're going to virtue signal here, let's be real, okay? Raise your hand if you want to be the person with a flight that's led in by a blind dwarf with severe psychological and intellectual disabilities. I don't think anybody there is raising their hand, so they can try to virtue signal all day long about how the Biden administration policy was a good one, but I don't think any of you guys are lining up to be on the plane that's going to be led in by somebody who was hired through that program.
That's right.
And so that's the reality. They were trying to hire people who were not fit for the job.
It's not the reality, is it? Because I asked you for an example of reality, and you've gone to a fantastical version, which, if in time it's shown that they were hiring unqualified people. No, I've read that too. Can I ask you broadly?
That's the policy.
Do you think that the president went too soon? There are bodies in the water. Do you think he should wait to go on the culture war trip? And I don't want to have a culture war trip with you myself. Could this all have waited 30 days?
Well, I can tell you this. If my family was on the plane, I would want to know that every investigation was started, that they were looking into exactly why this happened. Nobody's promising this is caused by DEI. What we're saying is it's a possibility. It's going to be investigated. And beyond that, we're also going to investigate things that are very much more common, like pilot error and things along those lines. You've got to put the information out there, though. Families want to know what's being done, and this is one piece of the puzzle of what's going to be done. And I can guarantee this is going to look wider than this crash, and I guarantee you they will identify problems, and I would love to come back and I will go through the report with you, because I think it's going to make you think twice about this whole ideology and the, frankly, absurd policy the Biden administration tried to advance.
Thank you very much for returning tonight and for offering to come back when there is more evidence. We'll pick you up on that, Robbie Starr.
It's the loss of...
Yeah, so to me, yeah, it seems political, because it is political, because it is the culture war, and it's being injected into this this discussion right off the bat. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we don't have enough evidence at this point to, I would say, draw any conclusions on anything, but that's me. And I'm not saying I agree with the previous DEI policy, but right now I think we want to get to facts.
who were killed, and you even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families
They
to
are
hear you
a
blaming
group of
DEI
people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming
please.
Even yet know the names of the...
So the excuse me. The controversy continues. Let me take a break while I cough.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right. Related to this story, also circulating tonight, and this raises some interesting questions, and I would say it's about, for me anyway, what jumps out is a potential conflict of interest, which is embedded in this story. But, FAA leader, Federal Aviation Administration leader, quit before DC plane crash thanks to Elon Musk. This, the version from the New Republic, with this story being reported widely tonight. The world's richest man apparently thought it was a good idea to bully the Federal Aviation Administration chief out of his job. It says here, the administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, Michael Whitaker, resigned from his position on January 20th after repeated demands from Elon Musk that he quit, leaving the agency without a Senate-confirmed leader during a major crisis in the wake of the D.C. plane crash. Musk called for Whitaker's resignation in September after the FAA chief proposed fining Musk's company, SpaceX, over $600,000 in civil penalties for failing to follow license requirements during 2 launches in 2023. Whitaker told a congressional panel at the time that fines were, quote, the only tool we have to get compliance on safety matters. The tech CEO, and it says here fascism enthusiast, strange words, repeatedly attacked Whitaker, maybe not, attacked Whitaker from his X account, claiming in one post that the FAA was harassing SpaceX. Musk also replied to an X poster who said the FAA, quote, should not exist, and attacked Whitaker for preventing his goal of colonizing Mars. He says here, and this is a quote from Musk, the fundamental problem is that humanity will forever be confined to Earth unless there is a radical reform at the FAA. FAA administrators, it says here, typically serve for a 5-year term, but Whitaker only served for 1 year, replacing Trump appointee Stephen Dixon in 2022. Whitaker had been confirmed by a bipartisan 98-0 Senate vote in October of 2023. The issue here for me is there's an obvious conflict of interest because Musk is running the Department of Government Efficiency, has leverage over now government employees in a wide range of departments, and apparently some leverage even within the FAA, and yet he's running SpaceX. So he has a company that needs to get safety permits for launches and a variety of other things related to his business, and yet he has the power over the people who make the decisions on whether those permits are granted or whether his company might ultimately get fined for violating the law. I don't know. I guess if you spend $270 million to buy your way into a political position of influence and an administrative position within government, maybe you get to have your own way. But to me, that doesn't seem right at all. That's like putting someone in charge of the Department of Motor Vehicles and having the ability to fire anybody who comes over and says, "Hey, show me your driver's, where's your driver's license?" "Well, I didn't bother to get one." "Well, show it to me." "No, you're fired." Do you see that there's a potential conflict of interest there? I don't think Elon Musk is the right guy for that job. I mean, he might have the right mindset for it, but he has just so many different conflicts of interest that because of all of his companies, you can't have a guy who has companies, multiple companies, doing billions of dollars in business and accepting government grants, subsidies, tax breaks, and is also reliant on government or has to comply with a wide range of government regulations, then being in charge of the departments that hand out the government grants and apply the regulations. That can't work because now you're in charge. Do you see what the problem is there? And we're talking hundreds of millions and billions of dollars and regulations that involve people's lives, safety. And it's coming to the surface right there because he's in a conflict even before he got into the position with the head of the FAA. Whether that was I seriously doubt that in this particular incident that had a direct impact. But of course, the anti-Trump movement will try to spin it that way, just as I think Trump is using DEI as a political sledgehammer here. And I think you're going to see them just use it over and over and over again for a while anyway. But to me, they're not letting a crisis go to waste. And I don't agree with that. Me personally, wait for all the facts. Don't politicize something. Let's move on to the next stories here. It seems Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, is going to meet with Canadian officials. Canada's public safety minister is going to have to, before these tariffs are imposed, could be a last chance for Canada to avoid these 25% tariffs. Will it happen? I think the tariffs are going to happen. Trump is saying is going to happen. And that means that this meeting will have to happen probably tomorrow because the tariffs are set to take effect on Saturday. And it could be devastating for Canada. Unprecedented what's going on here. So Trump is saying today that, and this is a little ray of hope in one respect, the other day at the World Economic Forum, Trump stood up and said that the USA doesn't even need Canada's oil or Canada's lumber. Today, Trump is saying, when he's going to decide tonight whether the tariffs will apply to oil coming from Alberta, Canada, He hasn't decided yet, so it may or may not. The tariffs may or may not include Canadian oil.
Yes, please. Mr. President, on a slightly different subject, on your Canada and Mexico tariffs, will oil be included or excluded from those tariffs?
So we'll be announcing the tariffs on Canada and Mexico for a number of reasons. Number one is the people that have poured into our country so horribly and so much. Number two are the drugs, fentanyl, and everything else that have come into the country. And number three are the massive subsidies that we're giving to Canada and to Mexico in the form of deficits. And I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
Will oil be part of that, though? Because we get oil from Canada.
Oil is going to have nothing to do with it as far as I'm concerned. Oil has nothing to do with it.
Tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 25%. That's coming on Saturday?
That's coming on the first Saturday.
But no oil tariff, no oil tariffs.
No, I don't. Well, I didn't say that. You said that. No.
Well, I don't want to misinterpret.
No, we may or may not. We're going to make that determination probably tonight on oil. Yeah, because they send us oil. We'll see. It depends on what the price is. If the oil is properly priced, if they treat us properly, which they don't. Look, Mexico and Canada have never been good to us on trade. They've treated us very unfairly on trade. And we will be able to make that up very quickly because we don't need the products that they have. We have all the oil you need. We have all the trees you need, meaning the lumber. We have more than almost anybody in those two categories. In oil, we have more than anybody, and we don't need anybody's trees. We have to free up some of the tree areas that we have. We have great lumber in this country. We have to free them up environmentally, which I can do very quickly. But we don't need what they have. And for us to be subsidizing Canada to the tune of $175 billion a year and subsidizing Mexico to the tune of $250 billion, $300 billion a year. And Mexico is a method of China sending in its product. And with China, I'm also thinking about something because they're sending fentanyl into our country. And because of that, they're causing us hundreds of thousands of deaths. So China is going to end up paying a tariff also for that. And we're in the process of doing that. We'll make that determination what it's going to be. But China has to stop sending fentanyl into our country and killing our people.
Mr. President.
Now it's a $175 billion deficit. The other day it was $250 billion. I told you, he's just making these numbers up. Or he may not be properly informed, and he's just all over the place with it. 175 billion today. The other day it was 250 billion. The other day it was 300 billion. The day before that it was 200 billion. Now it's 175 billion. You know, that's a lot of difference in billions, and he can't even get his numbers straight. And he says Canada treats the U.S. very unfairly on trade. If you don't even have your numbers straight, how can I take that seriously? I can't. The only way I can take it seriously is that he's actually going to impose these tariffs, which is, in my view, incredibly misguided. I'm just going to go over and look in the chat for a moment. Let's see what you guys are saying about all of this. Choosy says, no Cosmo debris removal jokes. Well, I have them. All Sorts says, Trumpinator, responding to Trumpinator, Canada is being run by imbeciles. Should we have an election that, and it doesn't finish? I don't know. I know that some people absolutely want an election. In Ontario right now, we have an election underway, a snap election just called by the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, who says whoever gets elected will then have a mandate to proceed forward and deal in an effective manner with Donald Trump. I saw an interview today, though, with the leader of the Liberal Party, Bonnie Crombie, who is saying that the election is unnecessary. He shouldn't be calling an election. So trying to use that as sort of an issue that there shouldn't be an election. It's irresponsible to call an election because we have Donald Trump coming forward with these tariffs. I don't know. Over here, everybody's screaming for a federal election. They want it at the earliest possible opportunity, including a lot of I don't know. And then over here, at the provincial level, you have people screaming and hollering, saying, "No, we don't want an election." Even though, I don't know, to me, it makes sense. Call the election, have it quickly, get it over with, and then, yes, moving forward, you'll have a very clear mandate on how you can deal with the U.S. government on this issue of tariffs and trade. What else do we have going on in here? Sandy says, I hope Danielle Smith will wake up to Alberta. We love you, Canada. Yeah, I love Canada too, Sandy. And Danielle Smith is back in the headlines today, making headlines with this on Newsmax, back on US TV, talking about what else? This very issue, the border, trade, tariffs. Let's bring Danielle Smith up. So many buttons to click just to get one click going. Here we go.
One Canadian politician is here for that type of idea. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. She says Canada needs to appoint their own border czar so they can work closer with U.S. border czar Tom Homan and shut down these cartels. Let's welcome in now the Premier of Alberta, Canada, Danielle Smith. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, John. Nice to see you. Sorry for your tragedy in the U.S. We've all been watching it, and it's just horrific. And our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims.
We thank you for that. Obviously, those affected by this personally appreciate those sentiments, and there's so many questions that remain. I know air traffic control is an important issue for every country, and one of the things we heard from Donald Trump and Sean Duffy today is the need to return to a merit-based hiring practice when it comes to this stuff. There have been attempts to insert DEI. Again, we don't know what the cause of this is, but it's one thing that's already coming out of this. How do you feel about that, the need to return to merit-based hiring practices?
Well, whether it's in this ministry or in others, I can tell you we've already taken similar steps in Canada. We have my department looking at DEI policies throughout our administration, and then particularly in our universities, in order to make sure that we're hiring people in all of our positions on the basis of merit. I think that the woke hiring practices went a little bit too far everywhere, and we've been among the first provinces to start looking at how we might be able to rein that in.
Yeah, and again, we see that in private business as well here in this country. There's a big, kind of reassessment of what's going on there. And I should mention we had this interview scheduled for quite a while. I was very excited to speak to you about everything that you're doing in Canada and the kind of resurgence of conservatism north of the border here. Let's talk about these tariffs and border security a little closer. Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum last week in Davos, this is what he said in relation to Canada.
We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
So, we know Donald Trump likes to stake out these positions early on in the negotiations. What's your reaction to that?
Well, so far be it for me to correct the president, but let me tell you what we do have in Alberta, and you can be the judge about whether we should continue to be a solid trading partner and supplier to the U.S. We have 1 trillion barrels of oil in place, of which 200 billion barrels are recoverable, and we also have about 500 trillion cubic feet of gas. We surpassed Saudi Arabia in 2014 as the largest exporter to the United States, most of that coming from my province of Alberta. And we'd like to sell more. There was a concept that the president first signed on 2 years ago of Keystone XL, which would have taken our particular grade of heavy oil and connected it with the heavy oil refineries in Texas. And we'd like to restart that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
We don't feel that we're in competition with the U.S. You've got a different grade, and your refineries need our particular grade of heavy oil.
Well, I know that when a lot of conservatives talk or hear Donald Trump talk about Canada becoming the 51st state, I think those conservatives are only excited about Alberta becoming part of the United States. And I kid, of course, because you guys have great ski resorts, obviously, and the whole cowboy culture that we identify with here in this country. But, you are serious. And conservatives in Canada are also serious about working with the U.S. unlike Justin Trudeau and his party when it comes to shutting down these cartels on the border.
Well, it's very true. I mean, we were one of the first to announce our own border security plan. Keep in mind, in our jurisdiction, we have some policing functions and border functions that are federal, and then some policing functions that are provincial. And at the provincial level, we deployed special teams to be able to go to the border, sheriffs who are going to be armed with border dogs so that they can do the sniffer test to see if there's any drugs. They're going to be trained in commercial vehicle inspection. We've got 10 drones that are all-weather drones, and the federal government has added a Black Hawk helicopter, which has started patrolling our border as of yesterday. There were news stories about it. We did take a news team down yesterday so that they could see what we're deploying, and we're making those images available. But we are serious. You'll probably see in the news as well, we finally prosecuted three individuals behind a fentanyl super lab, and they got 18 years in jail. And so we're taking this seriously. We've got a couple of other major super labs that our law enforcement in Alberta have busted, and I hope to see the same results. We don't want our people killed by these bad guys either. And so we've been taking action on this for a number of years now, and we want to work with our American partners to show how serious we are.
Well, talk to us about the Liberal Party in Ottawa and Justin Trudeau. And, he had this kind of fake resignation. The Liberal Party is still in charge with kind of a, puppet government going on. But there's an opportunity right now, a crucial time when we have a new administration in the United States and a willingness to cooperate and work with the leadership in Canada. It doesn't seem, though, like the Liberal Party is up to the task.
I hope they are. They did announce a $1.3 billion strategy. And what I've seen is even though that because of the Parliament not functioning right now, they're having to deploy existing resources. So they've managed to find that. And that's actually good. I know that they've had a conversation with Howard Lutnick. He seems to be encouraged by what he's seeing. But what I've seen from the U.S. president is he says, don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. So that's why we've gone out with great effort to demonstrate that we're already there. We're going to be monitoring a 2-kilometer border in Alberta, which borders Montana, to make sure that our part of the country is secure. I know my neighbor in Saskatchewan's doing the same. My neighbor in Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec are also deploying their own forces as well. It is really an all-hands-on-deck approach. This is why we need a border czar, similar to what you have with Tom Homan, is that because we have turmoil, we've got a prime minister who's only going to be there 38 days, another one who might be elected for the same amount of period, then a general election. We have some instability in who the person is to actually speak with. And
well,
so
it's amazing. It's amazing how the Liberal Party finds the resources to do this when that election is looming, and they're facing some serious challenges. Real quickly, and this is a separate topic, but it's something I know you care about, and I know our audience cares about as well. As we look at Canada, to see the changes there, we see the increase of doctor-assisted suicide in Canada. It now accounts for what I saw, I think, in a BBC report, 1 out of every 20 deaths, and we see that trend increasing. This, I think, to a lot of people is frightening.
And it should be frightening. I mean, one of the things that the federal government is allowing is the potential for people to seek MAID because of mental illness. We've heard of people seeking MAID because they're poor and can't get on government supports. It's outrageous. The intention behind it was always that if death was reasonably foreseeable and imminent from a condition you weren't going to recover from, like late-stage cancer or something along those lines, that a person would have the choice. But it's broadened out to a point where it's completely unreasonable, and we've resisted moving down that path. We're creating a separate oversight body to make sure that doctors have the oversight if they do make that determination, so that families can intervene in the event that somebody's just seeking it because they're having a bad patch in life. We don't want somebody feeling so desperate that they think that's the only answer. We want people to recover if they can and get their lives back. So we take a bit of a different approach on that.
Yeah, not a good look for any government when people are choosing to die as opposed to living. And it's very concerning, and I know you're concerned about that. And a lot of Americans are looking north, hoping for more cooperation from the government in Ottawa. We'll look forward to those elections coming up, and Danielle will be in touch with you as well. Thank you so much for being with us today. Pleasure.
Thank you. Well, you have a great friend in Alberta, and we're looking forward to continuing that relationship.
And so ends Danielle's latest appearance on U.S. television. Looking in the chat here, Peter says Quebec has the highest MAID deaths at 4,800. I don't know. I haven't seen stats in that regard, but I'll take your word for it. And yeah, it has spread to, they have spread out the MAID program way too far, in my opinion. I'm very much opposed to it, as I have shown you all on the program from time to time. Let's take a little break. More coming up. Don't go away.
Maverick News. Expose lies and tell truth. The world is watching.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
There we are. We're back. Confirmation hearings today for Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel. And here is Tulsi Gabbard unleashing on the deep state. And, you know, this is a Trump nominee who has been accused by the Democrats of being a pro-Putin, pro-Assad security risk, and now being possibly confirmed into a position where she will be in charge of national security. Here she is.
I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence. This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers, millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of Al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation. If confirmed as DNI, I will do my very best to fulfill this mandate and bring leadership to the intelligence community with a laser-like focus on our essential mission, ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. As the President's principal intelligence advisor, I'll begin by leading by example, checking my own personal views at the door, and committing to delivering intelligence that is collected, analyzed, and reported without bias, prejudice, or political influence. I enlisted in the Army because of the horrific terrorist attack on September 11th and volunteered to deploy to Iraq in 2005, where I served in a medical unit. After nearly 22 years in uniform with 3 combat deployments to the Middle East and Africa, I'm now a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, where I serve as a battalion commander of soldiers in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I served in Congress for 8 years on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services committees. And it's my experience in the military and in the halls of Congress that have given me a deep understanding of the complex challenges that our nation faces, in both roles engaging with world leaders, in both roles being privy to highly classified intelligence. So I know firsthand how essential accurate, unbiased, and timely intelligence is to the President, to Congress, and to our warfighters. I also know the heavy cost of intelligence failures and abuses. Senator Collins, you led the creation of ODNI specifically to address those intelligence failures of 9/11 and Iraq's so-called WMDs. The need for the ODNI under strong leadership still exists today. If confirmed, I'll bring my experience and fresh eyes to leading the intelligence community. And my day one priorities will be to assess the global threat environment, identify where gaps in our intelligence exist, integrate intelligence elements, increase information sharing, and ensure that unbiased, apolitical, objective collection and analysis to support the President and policymakers' decision-making occur. I'll work to end the politicization of the intelligence community and ensure there is a clear mission focus in the IC on its core mission of this unbiased, apolitical collection and analysis of intelligence to secure our nation. I'll work to rebuild trust through transparency and accountability. This is a national security imperative. And I'll work to assess and address efficiencies, redundancies, and effectiveness across ODNI to ensure focus of personnel and resources is on our core mission of national security. Now, in my meetings that I've had with many of you, you expressed bipartisan frustration about recent intelligence failures as well as the lack of responsiveness to your requests for information. Whether it's the surprise October 7th Hamas terrorist attack, to the sudden takeover of Syria by Islamist extremists, failures to identify the source of COVID, anomalous health incidents, UAPs, drones, and more. If confirmed, I look forward to working with you to address these issues. Ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people is a mandate of leadership that rises above partisan politics. If confirmed, my commitment to the President, to you, and to the American people is this: I will do my very best to find the truth, no matter where it leads, and share that truth with President Trump, his advisors, and you in Congress, providing you with that unbiased, timely, and accurate intelligence as you make the tough decisions that'll impact the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States, accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. I hate that we have leaders who cozy up to Islamist extremists, minimizing them to so-called rebels. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an Al-Qaeda offshoot, HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many American service members. Democrat senators in the past resorted to anti-Christian bigotry against some of President Trump's judicial nominees like Amy Coney Barrett and Brian Boucher. I condemn those actions as a Democrat in Congress at the time, as religious bigotry must be thoroughly condemned by all of us, no matter the religion. Unfortunately, there are some Democrat senators who still don't understand the principle of freedom of religion and Article 6 of the Constitution. Quote, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Unfortunately, they're once again using the religious bigotry card, but this time trying to foment religious bigotry against Hindus and Hinduism. If anyone is sincerely interested in knowing more about my own personal spiritual path of Hinduism, I welcome you to go to my account on X, where I'll share more on this topic.
Okay, so that was part of her opening statement. The session got more heated as it progressed. The Democrats questioning her loyalty, as she expected they would, because they've had a lot of concerns, and some Republicans too, because of some of the, well, I know that she went over to visit Assad at one point, and there's just been ongoing concerns. I remember Hillary Clinton accused her of being a puppet of Putin.
It's about your judgment. And those are some of the areas that I want to pursue.
Oh, my goodness.
First, until you were nominated by the president to be the D.E.I, you consistently praised the actions of Edward Snowden. Some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation, and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights of legal whistleblowers. But Edward Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Scabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government that led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Yeah,
back those words?
Once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He
Edward,
also released information
we agree that Edward Snowden
that exposed the United States government's illegal
your
programs.
legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's illegal activities. If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets. And I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain the trust of our Five Eyes partners? I find it very troubling.
She starts to dance to a different tune. She does, in a way. But then also as part of that exchange, she later said that, her solution to preventing a Snowden-like leak in the future would involve making sure the United States doesn't engage, at least her department wouldn't engage in anything illegal again. Not exactly the answer I think they were looking for. So, take it for what it is. It's a fancy dance in front of the confirmation hearings. I can tell you that this is going to continue for some time. There's no exact timeline on how long it will take to complete these confirmation hearings, but it's in process with her and with Kash Patel, who also is on the hot seat. He's been identified by Trump as his favorite candidate to run the FBI. And while he has, going into this, said in interviews that he's going to kind of go after the deep state, today, during this confirmation hearing, he's kind of saying that, well, actually, I'm just focused on the future. I'm not necessarily going to go back and try to prosecute these guys back there. So, again, doing a fancy dance in front of these guys. Here, I'll show you. I don't know if this is the exact clip, but let's listen to this one.
In this, we are in agreement, Senator. Get my grand jury testimony. I want it made public. I asked the Department of Justice to make it public, and they refused to do so.
There is no legal bound against you telling us right now what you testified to.
When I asked for my transcript to be released,
Sir, did you or did you not commit a crime?
Senator, I did not commit a crime.
Then why won't you tell us what you testified to?
Because it occurred over the course of 3 weeks. I don't have the ability to recall everything I testified to, but I'm asking you to put my transcript
Did you testify to
out.
witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents?
Senator, what I testified to is best captured by that transcript in real time.
So you're not willing to tell Congress, after making many pledges today about transparency, whether or not you testified to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents. In the name of all the values you have said today, did you or did you not testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents?
I testified accordingly and under oath, and I encourage you to get that transcript.
And by the law of our land, you are free to tell people, what are you hiding from Congress? Answer the question. Did you testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents, yes or no?
Senator, the grand jury testimony is available to you I encourage you to make it public.
As you likely know, the second volume of Jack Smith's report about the classified document case is not public yet. To fulfill our constitutional duty of advising.
Okay, so that goes back and forth and back and forth. And then somebody on the other side coming to Kash Patel's support saying, I know why they're afraid of you. This is Marsha Blackburn saying that the reason they're coming down so hard on him is because the Epstein list is coming and Kash Patel is the man who's going to deliver it.
Your questions, and it has led me to one thing. Why are the Democrats so afraid of you?
I don't know, Senator. You'd have to ask them.
Well, I tell you what I think, and listening to their questions and your responses, which we appreciate, they know that you're going to go in and you're going to clean up that political cabal that has been over there for years. You are going to reposition the FBI to its core mission. You stated that earlier in this hearing, and there will be no more political persecutions and no more two tiers of justice. And they have liked having two tiers of justice. They have enjoyed it, and it has helped them. They think in their political mission, they've enjoyed targeting Catholics. They've enjoyed targeting parents. But the American people have said they want no more of that. And our colleagues know you're going to clean it up. I want to talk to you about the Epstein case. I have worked on this for years, trying to get those records of who flew on Epstein's plane and who helped him build this international human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Now, earlier I urged then Chairman Durbin to subpoena those records, and I ended up being blocked by Senator Durbin and Christopher Wray. They stonewalled on this, and I know that breaking up these trafficking rings is important to President Trump. So will you work with me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings?
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past and how we are going to.
And one more clip of Kash Patel tonight. Here we go.
In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service isn't exemplary on how I would proceed if confirmed as FBI is intentionally putting false information into the public ether and creating more public discourse. The only thing that will matter if I'm confirmed as a director of the FBI is a de-weaponized, depoliticized system of law enforcement completely devoted to rigorous obedience of the Constitution and a singular standard of justice. In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service isn't exemplary on how I would proceed if confirmed.
So, I don't know. I watched a lot of his confirmation hearing today, and I don't know where he would really end up going. I can't really tell. So he did a pretty good job, in my mind anyway, of deflecting and leaving a kind of a question mark there, which may help him as he seeks the confirmation. And again, don't know how long it will take for them to reach a decision. Let me take a very brief break. Gonna come back on the other side. Be right back.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight. for freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are 2 iconic artistic designs to choose from. But there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech. Free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
Okay, and just here's Shifty Schiff, as Trump would call him, going after Kash Patel. Hang on. It's not coming up. Here we go.
Were convicted of attacking police officers. Is that who we want? So you're being considered for director of the FBI. And here you did no diligence to find out whether people you were associating with now the President of the United States in song were convicted of attacking police officers. Is that who we want running the FBI? I want you to turn around. There are Capitol Police officers behind you. They're guarding us. Take a look at them right now. Turn around.
I'm looking at you. You're talking to me.
No, look at them. I want you to look at them if you can, if you have the courage to look them in the eye, Mr. Patel, and tell them you're proud of what you did. Tell them you're proud that you raised money off of people that assaulted their colleagues, that pepper sprayed them, that beat them with poles. Tell them you're proud of what you did, Mr. Patel. They're right there. They're guarding you today. Tell them how proud you are.
That's an abject lie, and you know it. I've never, ever accepted violence against law enforcement. I've worked with these men and women, as you know,
you
my entire
glorified
life,
it in song,
and I did
Mr.
not
Patel.
make a single dime out of
In
it.
song. Well, let me.
How about you ask them if I have their backs, and let's see about that answer.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Patel. Let me ask you this. If an FBI director promoted a song of people who sprayed pepper spray in the face of an FBI agent, would you say they were fit to be director?
Mr. Schiff?
Yes or no? Would they be fit to be director?
I am fit to be the director of the FBI.
If you were the FBI director and you promoted a song with someone who beat an FBI agent with a pole, would you say you were fit to be FBI director?
Mr. Schiff, I am fit to be FBI director based on my 16 years in government service.
And yet you did all these things, Mr. Patel. You can say, oh, I support law enforcement, I decry violence against law enforcement. You could say all that. It's what you did, Mr. Patel, that matters.
And I'm going to go back to the Gabbard thing for just a moment. Then I promise we'll move on to the next stuff. But here's an additional exchange on the Edward Snowden leak and where she stands on that. And this is where she lays out her plan for preventing a similar leak in the future.
So was Edward Snowden a traitor?
Senator, my heart is with my commitment to our Constitution and our nation's security.
Ours too.
Thank you. Yeah. I have shown throughout my almost 22 years of service in the military, as well as my time in Congress, how seriously I take the privilege of having access to classified information and our nation's secrets. And that's why I'm committed, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, to join you in making sure that there is no future Snowden-type leak. And I would do so by taking 4 specific actions. Number one, again, to make sure that there are no illegal and unconstitutional programs, limiting in a big way those who have access to our nation's top secrets through security clearance reform, making sure that every single person in the workforce knows about the legal whistleblower channels available to them, and making sure that there's a direct line available to me should anyone have concerns. If people choose to step outside of those legal channels to raise any concerns about programs or actions that exist within the intelligence community that are classified, there will be no excuse to do so, and they should be charged and prosecuted under the law.
Was he a traitor at the time when he took America's secrets, released them in public, and then ran to China and became a Russian citizen?
Senator, I'm focused on the future and how we can prevent something like this from happening again.
What to the United States of America?
Senator, I will also repeat my answer. He broke the law.
You said earlier that you were offended by a question that my colleague from Kansas asked, which I think was his duty as somebody on this committee to fulfill his responsibility to advise and consent. We are not here to be a rubber stamp for the President of the United States. So let me ask you again, do you believe, as the chairman of this committee believes, as the vast majority of members of our intelligence agencies believe, that Edward Snowden was a traitor to the United States of America?
Won't say it.
Senator, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will work with you to make sure that there is not another Snowden-like
social
leak.
media. It's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for to be confirmed as the chief intelligence officer of this nation. As my colleague said, this is not about you. It's about the people that serve the intelligence agencies of the United States. Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America? That is not a hard question to answer when the stakes are this high.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer,
in
yes
uniform,
or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
as someone who has
I'll go on
worn
to
our
my
uniform
questions.
in combat, I understand how critical our national security
Apparently
is.
you don't.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll just look in the chat. Here's Brian saying, Snowden was pre-Trump. Donald Trump reveals everything he knows on Twitter or through his own idiotic media group. Yes, that's true. You don't need to worry about keeping secrets because Trump will reveal all. He kind of blurts it all out, doesn't he? Yeah. And Allsword says trying to control what she is saying. Yeah, you can't trust Trump with anything. Don't worry about it. He'll just let the president do it. He'll reveal all the secrets. That's why they went after him so hard. They were worried about him. Some people like that. And Bond says, I don't think he is a traitor. He revealed truth to the public. It's not just about revealing the truth, though. It's about how you do it, I would say. And the ethics behind it. It's a slippery slope. Complicated issue, in my view. And Kitty says, answer the way we want or else. And let me look over here in Rumble. In Rumble land. Take me just a moment to get over into the chat there. Hard to monitor that because it doesn't feed into the system. So the chat, I can't put it up on the screen, but I'll read whatever is in there. Looks like we've got a couple of trolls. And Be Lovely talking about the oil issue. Be Lovely says, Epstein's sex trafficking sick. And CBC Brown 44, how does Schiff still have a job? What a POS. I've seen him lie in various hearings, especially when Trump was in power before. And CBC Brown 44 says, no, he is not. I guess you're talking about Snowden. He was a traitor to the establishment, but he enlightened the American people who he ultimately works for. All right. Hang on. I'm going to queue up something else, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The tariffs will be Trump's downfall, if he actually ends up using them as he is threatening to do. That's my opinion, and I'm not alone. Tariffs used like this, if they're used as tariffs, will not work. They'll inflict too much damage on the U.S. economy, especially as he unleashes them on the biggest trading partners the United States has. Mexico, Canada, China. It'll make everything much more expensive. You'll get a lot of inflation in any event. I've been saying this for some time. Brace yourself, folks. It's coming Saturday. And I think it is going to happen. It's pretty clear at this point there isn't enough time to head these tariffs off at the pass. If you think it's about the border, think again. It isn't. It's about much more than that. I think he actually may have his sights set on taking over the country. He's going to inflict a lot of pain and suffering in order to get people here jacked up, upset. People will end up blaming our own government, and we're already seeing the narratives being spun up in that regard. It's all Justin Trudeau's fault. It's the liberals. It's a war on liberalism. It is a war on progressivism. It is a war, a trade war that Trump is initiating. And if he leaves the tariffs in place for any length of time, though, it will hurt the United States in a variety of ways. Tonight we have this video from economist Connor O'Keefe of the Mises Institute, and he explains in very clear ways why tariffs ultimately used in this fashion will likely lead to the downfall of Donald Trump. Let's listen to what Connor has to say.
On Sunday, after the Colombian government turned away 2 U.S. military aircraft full of detained migrants, Trump announced he would place an emergency 25% tariff on all goods imported from Colombia. The tariff was quickly rolled back after the Colombian president announced he and the United States had overcome the impasse and that his country had agreed to receive deportees. But Trump is reportedly planning to place an equivalent 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada and Mexico as soon as this weekend. Trump's actions are not surprising, as he made it very clear throughout the campaign that he intends to use tariffs heavily to benefit American workers and businesses, and overall to prevent the American people from being ripped off. Having a presidential administration that actually prioritizes the well-being of American workers, small businesses, and everyday members of the public over providing unfair advantages to well-connected megacorporations, foreign governments, and a few deep-pocketed donors would be a significant improvement over the kinds of administrations Americans have been forced to endure for decades. Trump is in the White House today because he convinced enough Americans that that is the kind of administration he would lead. But if Donald Trump and his team are serious about what they claim to want to bring about, they need to rethink their embrace of tariffs. because tariffs, or more accurately, import taxes, are arguably the worst tool for helping domestic workers, small businesses, and everyone else in Middle America that has been getting ripped off under our current political system. Simply put, tariffs are taxes on things that Americans buy from producers in other countries. When discussing tariffs, it's common to think of the kinds of foreign goods consumers buy directly, like Colombian coffee or Canadian maple syrup. But most tariffs actually apply to capital goods, like steel, oil, and lumber, that American businesses use to produce things here. The economic effects of tariffs have been well understood for centuries. As with any other tax, tariffs impose a new cost on producers. That new cost does not directly change the market price because prices do not come from production costs. But the new cost does mean that the producers who are operating right on the margin without the tariff will now take on economic losses if they continue doing business in the country that enacted the tariff. As a result, these foreign producers stop selling their goods to domestic consumers, and the domestic supply of that good falls, which drives domestic prices up. So tariffs raise prices by lowering the supply of goods available to domestic buyers. And this effect cannot be reversed by domestic producers, as that involves siphoning domestic resources away from whatever they had been producing before. At best, the shortages can be moved, not eliminated. The bad consequence of tariffs is one of the most widely accepted concepts in the often hyper-divided field of economics. And centuries of real-world examples have only confirmed what economic theory says, which is why it's rare to hear tariff advocates use pure economic arguments these days. Most rely on political arguments. One of the more popular arguments is protectionism. It's the idea that the federal government should tax foreign producers to help prop up American workers, American-owned businesses, and domestic industries. The very real hollowing out of many middle American towns and the decline of American manufacturing over the last century are often pointed to as evidence of what happens when trade is too free. So, the argument goes, the government needs to protect these small American towns from the greedy multinational corporations that will gladly dump American workers to save a few bucks on cheap labor from poorer countries. Even if prices go up a bit, we're told, having a robust, healthy workforce and thriving domestic industries is worth it. That sounds nice as a political talking point, but it quietly rests on a complete rejection of the economic effects I outlined before, along with a very flawed version of economic history. The hollowing out of Middle America did not come about because Americans have had the freedom to buy some foreign goods and resources. It came about because of the massive federal apparatus built up over the last century to move as much of our money as possible into the pockets of government officials and their friends at some of the biggest multinational corporations through taxes, inflation, and rigged laws and regulations. This failed diagnosis drives protectionists to embrace raising import taxes. But doing so can only hurt the people they claim to want to help. Because while it is true that imparting costs on the use of foreign-produced capital goods and resources can keep a small group of workers in jobs that they would not have kept in the absence of the taxes, these workers, along with all the workers who aren't protected by the tariff, are slammed with the high prices. Because remember, it's not that greedy companies pass the cost of the tariffs on to consumers. The supply of the affected capital goods and resources, and all the consumer goods they would have produced, goes down. Some workers can keep their jobs, albeit with paychecks that no longer go as far, but far more American workers suffer the effects of working for companies that need to make cuts to continue operating. There is no way around this. Protectionism is a bad economic argument masquerading as a realist political position. It is remarkably harmful for everyone in the American economy, especially the overtaxed, financially stretched people of Middle America. Some tariff advocates accept this, but argue that the federal government needs to raise revenue somehow, and that tariffs are much better and less invasive than our current tax system. Among the Trump movement, this often takes the form of calls to replace the income tax with a system of tariffs. Proponents usually cite America in the 1800s, when there was no income tax, and the economy grew at an historic pace, while the federal government raised almost all of its revenue with tariffs. Because of how unfathomably damaging the income tax is, it could certainly be the case that a tariff-only tax system would be less destructive than what we have today. But just as with government spending, in Washington, it is much harder to eliminate a tax than it is to add a new one. Without a heavy emphasis on gathering the public, congressional, bureaucratic, and legal support to abolish the income tax, the far likelier outcome of Trump's interest in tariffs is a system where the income tax remains in place and tariffs are added on top of it. Still, some advocates will say, even if that's the case, there are important non-monetary benefits to tariffs that more than make up for the economic losses. They'll say it's risky for our economy to rely on goods produced under other governments, especially governments we could easily find ourselves at war with in the near future. There are a few problems with this argument when it's used to push for more import taxes. First, the resources actually needed to defend the country are already being produced here. For example, the entire U.S. military uses about 0.2% of domestic steel production each year. Some industry groups think the figure is a little higher, but still, it's not as if America would be left defenseless today if some of these imports were cut off. In fact, raising import taxes to address this non-issue may have the opposite effect than what proponents claim. But even setting all of that aside, it's important to understand that the root of all of the geopolitical danger the U.S. currently finds itself in is Washington's obsession with remaining the primary power in every corner of the globe. The American people are forced to bankroll this costly, unnecessary, and impossible undertaking, which only makes war more likely, something many on the American right have finally started to wake up to. Also, forcing the American and Chinese economies, for example, to divest from each other lowers the immediate economic costs leaders would face if they started a new war, which only worsens the problem. Also, absurdly, you'll sometimes hear tariff advocates gleefully predicting that their import taxes will drive foreign companies to move their operations to the U.S. to avoid paying the tariff. Setting aside the fact that economic theory and history cast doubt on the notion that companies hindered by the tariff because they were barely holding on without the tax will suddenly start investing in entirely new foreign branches in the U.S. This flies in the face of all the supposed national security concerns the same people often cite. Just look at how concerned many right-wingers in Congress got over Chinese firms operating farms in America, or, more recently, Beijing's links to TikTok. The final political argument for tariffs that is popular among some Trump supporters is that, bizarrely, all the above arguments are fake, that Trump actually knows tariffs are bad for the American people, but that he is only planning to use them to gain leverage over other governments as he tries to bring about a world with no tariffs. Even if that were true, history has demonstrated time and time again that tariffs are usually met with retaliatory tariffs, not tariff cuts. And all indications of how other countries are preparing for Trump's trade policy suggest that this time is no different. And even when Trump uses America's leverage to get foreign governments to capitulate on various other things, such as the migrant flight dispute with Colombia last weekend, there's no reason why that has to be done with tariffs. The U.S. government sends out a tremendous amount of foreign aid and effectively provides the national defense for many countries around the world. Threatening to hold these benefits back or eliminate them altogether would be a great way for Trump to negotiate new deals without putting the well-being of the American people at risk. It is important to recognize that the problems cited by many of the most ardent tariff advocates are real. Many once thriving communities across this country have been artificially hollowed out by federal policies that aim to benefit a few huge, well-connected companies at the expense of everyone else. And the American working class has been forced to subsidize and later bail out multinational corporations while bankrolling a costly global police force that nearly every other country on earth gets to benefit from, essentially for free. The American people really are getting ripped off. But tariff advocates need to understand that these problems are caused by tyrannical government overreach, not an abundance of freedom. The path out of our national mess lies in gutting the burdensome federal bureaucracy, calling off Washington's global imperial project, abolishing the laws and regulations that warp the economy to benefit the politically connected rich, and returning the control over the monetary system to the American people. It does not lie in raising our taxes.
And you can find out more at Mrs.org. They have a kind of how should I characterize it? An Adam Smith, free market, invisible hand, Austrian School of Economics perspective on that issue. Now I need to get this audio from out of my head because it's playing audio and I can't concentrate and I don't know where the audio is coming from. Okay, I have something else for you on the other side, so don't go away.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, so there's this online influencer on TikTok. I've never seen her before. I guess she's pretty popular. Her name is, what is it? It's ADHD Brit. What is that? Attention Deficit Disorder High Definition? I don't know what it stands for, but she's pretty popular. Anyway, the reason I draw your attention to her tonight is because she's doing this thing called Commonwealth TikTok. And Canada being part of the Commonwealth, at one time straight up British colony, now today sort of an evolved offshoot of that, sort of, depending on your point of view, a sovereign nation, maybe not. Maybe it's just a myth. Maybe we're not a real country, but other countries seem to still recognize us as Canada, maybe soon to be the first 51st state. Who the heck knows what the future holds? But anyway, I'll start with this ADHD Brit. She started this Commonwealth TikTok. It's taken off. It has, I guess, a lot of people from Commonwealth nations contributing to it. I'm going to play you a couple of we'll do a little TikTok scroll here, and then she does this hilarious video talking about Canadians, and I want to share that with you because it really caught my attention. And oh yeah, she just got 1 million views on a video that she shot, but it's a video of, get this, her sofa. I don't know.
I'm loving Commonwealth talk. Thank you. If you live in Australia, New Zealand, UK, and you follow a Canadian, really appreciate it. But can we start sharing some weather too, like down under? Because it's going to be -12 where I am in Canada, Nova Scotia, later tonight. I want it to be sunny and warm again. No snakes, just the sun. No spiders, just the sun and the warmth. Thank you. Hello again from Canada, Commonwealth TikTok, or anywhere else that wants to join in. Today, let's talk about Commonwealth Costco's, specifically the food. According to my research that took only a few minutes, Costco, they're in a handful of countries, but specifically for the Commonwealth, over 100 in Canada, a few in the UK, a handful in Australia, and then one in New Zealand. I bet you that's fun to go to when it's busy. So this is the menu at my local Costco in Nova Scotia, Canada. You've got the double chunk chocolate cookie, ice cream, pizza, the classic $1.50 hot dog, chicken tenders and fries, pop, and then fries, but also the poutine. This is one of our national dishes from the province of Quebec, French province, and this is cheese curds, fries, chips perhaps, depending where you are, and gravy, and it is delicious. What's at your Costco that's different?
Enjoying watching the U.S. collapsing on itself? Of course you are. But as we watch it, there are two key numbers to keep in mind: 4 and 30. The entire population of the United States represents just 4% of the world's population, and yet Americans use 30% of the world's resources. They also produce 30% of the world's waste, even if the US government crumbles in on itself, and that's what all the hot gaties, ladies, and ladies are manifesting in 2025. Americans are the most hyper-individualistic, rabid consumers on this planet, and they are devouring resources: water, food, power, fuel, disposable goods, plastics. If we want to have any hope of survival as a species, American culture needs to end and be replaced with a far more sustainable alternative.
We're doomed, or at least America is. See what happens when you start talking about tariffs? The entire society collapses in on itself. Anyway, if you go to TikTok, you can check out these videos. Commonwealth TikTok. Just type that in as a hashtag or whatever, and it'll come up. But anyway, here's ADHD Brit commenting specifically on Canadians that she has been taking note of since starting Commonwealth TikTok. And just a little language warning here: it gets colorful, so if you have sensitive ears, plug them now. But this is pretty funny because it's very Canadian. Here, I'll show you. Okay, here she is. She just made me just belly laugh.
I'm watching a lot of Canadians, and so many Canadians have followed me ever since this Commonwealth talk, which is awesome. And you know what? Because Canadians have never came up on my For You page, ever. I didn't know they were so funny. Canadians are hilarious. I'm watching all of their videos, and the main thing they say, right? Let me try to get it correct. Fucking A. Fucking A. And they just say it all the time. And now I'm saying it. I'm walking around my house and I'm doing things and I'm going, fucking A. And I don't know if I'm using it in the right context, if it's a celebratory thing. I think I fucked that word up bad. If it's just a finish the sentence thing, I don't know, but I'm just walking around saying fucking A for no reason. And I love it. Canadians are bloody hilarious with everything they do, everything they say. They're just naturally funny and nice people. And I'm like, where have these people been? I need these people in my life. And they're on the other side of the world. I might just go fly there, rock up at the airport and go fucking A and just walk over and be like, where's my neighbours across the globe? Or I can sail past Antarctica and go around. Because the Earth's not fucking flat. I can go around. Yeah, I can do that. But, hey, Canadians.
Yeah, I don't know. That made me laugh. I thought it was funny. Shared that with you tonight. Love my country. Love the United States, too. Just never thought that the U.S. would be in a position under Donald Trump to try to annex us, take us over using economic warfare. Brace yourselves. Saturday isn't far away. I sure do miss the before times, I can tell you that. And, our caller the other night from New Mexico said that the reason Donald Trump wants the auto companies to come back, and he said that it's because the auto companies are American companies. And I have to, I understand the idea. They used to be Ford, Chrysler, GM, the big three, right? Chrysler doesn't even really exist in its former form. It's swallowed up a couple of times in corporate takeovers. These are global companies. Chrysler's now just part of Stellantis, which has Alfa Romeo, Fiat, just a whole bunch of different companies, a lot of European brands. I think even Peugeot is in there. So they're just part of that. And actually, Chrysler, hasn't really been taken care of. They might spin that off and sell off Chrysler because they just really only have a couple of models. The minivan produced out of Windsor, and you have, what else? The Charger. They're going to go electric anyway. These companies, they're global companies. That all started, man, like way back, and I'm not just picking on our caller from the other night, but this is a misconception a lot of people have. The auto industry really started to go global way back in the 80s. Do you remember the old Ford Escort hatchback? Ford promoted that as a world car. And Ford has always, like for a long time, it has been, very global in focus, American based, but through the expansion of its corporate investment, as people from around the world invest in these companies, they've become global. And when GM went bankrupt the last time, and the U.S. government invested in it to prop it up and save it, in a way, it's almost misguided to keep propping these companies up with government money when they are global, because General Motors, over the past number of years, has really been focused on China, investing in China, producing in China to get around Chinese tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade so that they can produce their vehicles there, because China's economy has been among the fastest growing in the world. So GM has been investing directly in China because that's been the biggest growth market for them, not in the United States. Now, Trump's tariffs, who knows what impact it ultimately will have. It's open for debate, open for dispute. We'll have to see where it goes. I sure do miss the old days, though, and I wish that those companies were truly American/Canadian companies, because even though the caller the other night said that they're American companies and we need to take them back, even the ownership of these companies, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, back in the old days, There were Canadian investors in those companies too. That jointly started, jointly owned, cooperation, cross-border cooperation, workers going back and forth across the border, Windsor, Detroit. It's not that simple. And these days, for sure, from the Ford Escort forward, the World Car, which was produced sort of as a competitor to the Volkswagen, then it was the, well, they call it the Golf now. They used to call it the Rabbit in 1974, right? Sort of the original hatchback design like that. Ford Escort, hatchback, World Car. And yet global supply chains, the expansion of all these companies out globally, globalism, corporate globalism, like it or not, that's where we're at. All these companies have factories all around the world now, not just in the United States, Canada, Mexico. That's just the North American aspect of it. They're all through Europe. Before the war with Ukraine, they had, pretty heavy footprints in Russia as well, less so today, and in China. Even Tesla has investments in China. So tell Elon Musk that he's going to have to shut his factories down there. That'll cost him. We'll see where things go. But, maybe we can somehow get back to the old days. And I do long for those days, which is why tonight I'm going to leave you again with rolling down memory lane with Maverick and the News Brothers. I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Love you.
He started with nothing, just metal and a dream. Wrenches in his hand, a vision so pristine. Day after day, he'd work till the stars shine, building a machine, one of a kind. Grease on his fingers, fire in his eyes. He'd smile at that engine like it was alive. He'd say, son, one day this will be yours. But I never knew how much it meant until he closed those doors. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel him near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. He taught me to drive, not just on the road, but through life's twists and turns and heavy loads. Now when I hit the gas and the tires start to sing, it's like he's riding shotgun with the wind under our wings. He's there in the chrome, in the roar of the gears, his laughter in the echoes, his wisdom through the years. This car ain't just metal, it's a piece of his soul. And every mile I ride, I feel it whole. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel it near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. Through the rain and the rust, it still shines so bright, like the love he put into every late night. And though he's gone, I know he's still here. In every curve of this car, I see him clear. Now I'm rolling down memory lane behind the wheel of that old Mustang. Every shift, every turn I feel the near. The sound of that engine, it's my dad I hear. Filled with pride with his hands and his heart. Every drive brings me back to the start. In this dream car, he's never too far. I remember my dad every time I start. Yeah, I remember my dad every time I start.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.